Hi, I'm Tim Zacharias with Cougar USA and your host of Building Value. On this episode, my guest is Mike Shreve, Senior Chief Engineer of Boxer Property. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that. Thanks for having me, and glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Really excited about the episode today. We're going to be talking about Mike's background and how he got into the industry, how COVID has really affected building operations over the last 6 months or so, and his thoughts on leadership and building operation. On Building Value, we go behind the scenes at some of the most iconic buildings in Texas to showcase the incredible people that design, build, and maintain them and their impact on the community. So where did you grow up?
So I grew up in upstate New York, but I have been down here on the South since the early 80s.
Me too.
Yeah, believe it or not. I've lost the accent. I would speak really fast, and my friends and my family would be like, down here, it's like, why do you speak so fast? I'm like, why do you speak so slow?
Yep.
And so, yeah, but no, my blood's thinned out, and I couldn't go back up north and live. It just wouldn't work for me.
There you go. Get you one of those bumper stickers that says, I wasn't born here, but
got here as
fast
fast. Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. So what about after high school? What'd you
do? So after high school, man, I'll tell you, I had some odd and end jobs, which, 6 months or a year or two, and then I went right in the Navy. And I was kind of wanted to follow my dad's footsteps, an electrician kind of, sort of. So I fell into topside electrician, did that for 4 years, and traveled the country, saw many, many great things, some, not so great things, but I wouldn't change it for the world. It made me kind of, to a degree, who I am today.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for your service,
Oh,
too.
it's
amazing.
an honor. It's a pleasure. So, yeah.
Very cool. So how did you transition from the Navy into this industry?
It's funny. People ask me that, but I'm a very, probably I would say, a task-oriented person, and the military, they train you to be very specifically, you follow these rules, these guidelines, and you do these tasks. And so I kind of just fell into that. And then getting out, I did a couple jobs outside of that. I mean, I even sold Kirby vacuum cleaners for a short period of time. And I realized quickly I wasn't a salesman. And I should have, it's funny, in high school, they give you those tests that kind of gears you towards what you will do in life. And so I think I remember them saying, you're not a salesman. So, but anyway, I did that for a brief period, and somehow I stumbled on this job interview with Heinz back in the early 90s, and I got an opportunity, and I started with Heinz in my early part of my career, and then the rest is history. I'll tell you, I was very blessed to work for Heinz for the short period, 12 years, but got a lot out of it, and just met some great people. So yeah, that was my introduction into this industry, and it has evolved to just all over the board to what I do today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, and I've actually some of the guests on the show have been veterans as well, and I think it's interesting. Just seems to be a good fit into the industry, for that personality or just, I guess, maybe the things that you learn in the military transfer over well into our industry. But it seems to be, quite a few veterans.
Oh yeah, I mean,
been successful here.
Yeah, and if you have the opportunity like I did, one of the guys I worked with initially was a Marine. So if you could imagine the talk at the drinking fountain between the two of us, we would mess with each other pretty hard. But no, it does. I mean, you're very structured in this industry. You've got to be able to manage and multitask, and I think the military just at a young age instilled into me, which everybody I've ever seen, it just gives you a sense of maturity that, over in this world, when you're asked to manage millions of dollars or assets of that expensive, and it is amazing. But I look back and I'm saying, wow, at that age I was doing this, and now at this age I'm doing this. It's a pretty surreal look back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now you've kind of have had this longer successful career now at the Boxer Properties. Can you tell me a little bit about what you're doing at Boxer and the type of properties that y'all have?
Sure. So, Boxers all over the United States. I'm very blessed to be able to work here in Houston with their corporate office. We've got 50 plus properties, and the assets that we have, they're given the age of the buildings and the operational components that are within these buildings, they're always in need of repair. Matter of fact, yesterday we were repairing an underground chill water line, and you don't know what you're going to get into from day to day, but I think in the industry where we are, you always want to look at these assets and make sure that if you can identify areas to make better and or improve efficiencies, you do so, and you don't wait for things to break down. You try to think ahead and say, that looks like it's in need of repair. Let's start looking ahead. I don't want that corrosion to get any worse. So, identifying those things and being proactive, honestly, I would say has allowed me to be as successful as I am. I don't sit back and put the blinders on, and so I've also, the guys that I work with, we kind of as a team are able to look for those things and identify. And Boxer, honestly, when you've got this many buildings and it costs a lot to run these buildings, but you want people to rent them, and in order for that to happen, they have to run.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter electrically, plumbing, HVAC. There's a lot that goes into these buildings that people don't recognize that it takes to maintain them. And for me, I think part of being successful is if you can be a servant. And that's hard for people to recognize, because people don't want to get dirty. They don't want to dig a ditch. They don't want to go out and physically have to do anything. And to me, I think that's what I strive with my team to do is that we are a servant. And if you lose sight of that, then you're just going to be like everybody else, which is normal. And so I think that's what kind of separates it. But, Boxer's great assets. They want to do the right thing and maintain these assets. And so it's been a fun ride. It really, really has.
That's great. I completely agree on the servant leadership. I mean, it's definitely a great way to show or to set that example of what you're looking for from your team, and the proactive approach to maintenance also is massive. I mean, at some point you're going to have to do the service eventually, right? Whether you schedule it or the equipment schedules it for you, right? So always easier to do it on your schedule.
Yeah, and if you're not looking at it proactively, I think what will happen is inevitably the reactiveness will cost you more. And to be able to see and look at it and say, okay, the repairs are starting to be getting excessive, the costs are starting to roll up. Let's not let this keep happening. So you kind of plan and you try to be as proactive as possible, and within reason, of course. I always tell my boss and the folks that I have to report to that I just wish you guys could give me that blank checkbook, because sometimes I can make a lot of problems go away, but it just doesn't happen that way.
Hey, if you figure out how to get a blank checkbook, you might be the best salesman in the world and not even know it.
I wish I could. I get that. That's true.
Well, if we look back over the last 6 months or so, what do you feel like have been some of the challenges that COVID has presented in terms of managing the buildings?
There is a large number of items that I think every building owner or every asset owner is managing at this point. While trying to continue the operation of the buildings, with, in some cases, a lack of occupants just because they're kind of adhering to their own corporate rules. Boxer, I would like to say, in the years of doing this, I have recognized the niche market that Boxer is in, where their assets globally, pretty much, they're, at least in Houston I can speak for, is they're a smaller amount of square footage per tenant. Mm-hmm. And with COVID, we've experienced, everybody wants to be isolated. They don't want to be with a group of people, and they want to be able to function and operate at the same time, be safe. And so I've watched and witnessed how, and I know the peers in the industry, the other companies, and what they're all going through and what they're doing to kind of combat it. But Boxer has continued to grow, and you look back and you're like, why are all these leases being executed? It's because of our small, floor plate and these leases that these folks want, and we have it. We have the inventory where most people don't, or they didn't. Their models are not such that they want the 20,000 square footers where we have the 1,500, sure. And so they're just going like hotcakes. We can't keep the inventory up. We're blessed in that regard, but as a whole, I think I do speak with peers in the industry, and I think we're all facing the same thing. It's It's rethinking what you do and what decisions you make to do. Is it going to continue and sustain that longevity of, we don't know how long COVID's going to, they think by the end of this year, maybe into next year. I mean, it's all kind of a draw. I mean, we know, but we have modified a lot of things the way we think and how we're doing it. But, I think it's to be determined on how this will play out. I'll be honest, about every 3, 5, 7 years, you kind of see an industry shift. And it just is a matter of, how is you as a building operator, how are you making changes? But corporate wise, I watch industries or corporations in the industry itself, they're going to shift what they do. I mean, Heinz has done it back in the mid 90s where they made changes to their operational staff and their title structures. And it's a big deal. People move around, people change companies. So from a personnel perspective, that was huge in the 90s. And I look now with the business sectors that are all around Houston, we've diversified.
Yes.
And our diversity has allowed us to kind of sustain. But, I also know up north where there's unions and those types of structures, they've always suffered. Whereas, kind of down south, we've been able to kind of sustain with the diversity. So I think that COVID has, to a degree, leveled the playing field. We're affected in greatly every single sector. It's hard to really, you look back when this happened late last year into this year, and you really see how it has crippled us in every single thing we do. If it hasn't affected this business, it affected the supplier, the food chain.
Yep.
You just can't. Every single person has been affected in so many ways, and you really, if you sit back and you look at and try to understand, it's mind-boggling. It really is mind-boggling how our nation is being crippled. But I also say, when you look at how we've reacted, it is absolutely amazing.
Yes.
And so I talk with people with business units and all the industry leaders over the course of this event that's occurring. And I get the question of, how are you guys changing? How are you adapting? I literally get tenants calling and they want to know, what have you as a landlord done in your building to make it safe? I'm like, these people are serious. Mm-hmm. And so you just can't tell them, well, we've cleaned this better. Right. We've increased this. They want tangible, identifiable items. And we, I think, Boxer, like anybody else, we've looked for those moments and we've reached out to partners like you all and we've asked, what can we do better? Is there a forward-thinking, leading product that will accommodate this? And so we've done what we think is the right thing to do, is operate our buildings and change filtration or upgrade this or upgrade that. And I think we're doing really good things and we're going to come out of this. It's just going to take time for things to kind of get settled.
Yep, and you keep hearing the new normal, and I don't know when we're going to be in that or when it's just going to go back to the regular normal. But we've definitely seen, and even here we've had some challenges with it as well. I mean, you mentioned filtration. We upgraded our air filters, and the water quality was an issue there for a while when literally everybody kind of stopped and there was so much less consumption. I mean, we've been doing the Legionella testing and even found it here in our shop. Luckily, we were just able to flush and get rid of it.
Right.
Just not things that you really thought about before. And so, and even in our panel shop where we had all those guys working together, we put in, UV light and things like that. So just a lot of things. And that question you said, what are you doing? The tenant's asking, what are you doing to keep this place safe? And I think that's going to be something that not just commercial office, but hotels,
sure,
even restaurants. People are going to want to see that, to know that going into this building is being safe. So it's totally different, outlook, I would say, on building operations going forward. So kind of thinking that way, what if you were looking forward, say, the next 6 months to a year, 2 years, do you feel like people are going to have a long memory on this, or do you feel like that's going to be a question that you're going to get for a long time? How safe is this building?
I think, who would have? I mean, again, people look back and I hate. You read about where we are and how we got here, and then you read that this was projected, years ago, and you kind of, if anybody's a conspiracy theorist, which I am not, you say the question like, but you wake up in a moment where you have to face the facts, and whether this was projected or not, it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. I think our society is, as diverse and as intelligent as we are. I think the thing that probably is hard to struggle with is our generational gaps that we all have. I mean, I look at my young daughters to this day, and I literally am perplexed every single morning when they go to bed at 2 in the morning and they get up at 10 in the afternoon or 10 in the morning or 11 or 12 o'clock, and I'm thinking, did I ever do that? I mean, the way they live, the way they think is totally different than we did, or our fathers or our parents before us did. And if I look back, I'm like, okay, I remember my dad saying, you're never going to amount to anything. And I look at my children, I'm like, are you ever going to be responsible for anything? And so I think our society is, whether this thing is around for the long haul, I guarantee you, 2020, we are not going to forget this for quite a long time. It has disrupted our worlds, personally, professionally. I'm 10 years from now, I'll say, well, what year was that happened? But I hope that we can quickly resolve from this and grow and learn. But it's to be determined really how long this will be here. But if I had a gambling man, I would say, it's going to be here for the next couple of years, and it's going to be fresh on our minds, and people are going to be cautious, and they're going to continue to ask questions, no doubt. But I don't know. I wish I did have a crystal ball, because you really could kind of plan accordingly and know that what's going to happen. But I don't know. The world and the society we live in today is completely different than it was 3 years ago.
Sure.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think it has also shown that people do adapt and change, and how well or how much differently we're handling things, 6 months later than March, April of this year is pretty incredible.
Totally agree. I totally agree with you for sure on that one.
So if we look back to, if we go back in time to BC before Corona here to 2019, I want to read this one because I want to make sure I get it right. You were the winner of the Executive Manager of the Year Award from the Houston BOMA chapter, and this award is presented to a member of the Houston BOMA in recognition of outstanding contributions to the commercial real estate industry through quality building management and professional growth. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about the way that you manage the people probably and the buildings as well that you feel like led to this nomination and winning of that award?
Wow. First off, the award that I received, I and again, it's not humble. It's not, I had no idea that I was even in the running for something like that. But, to me, and anybody that's worked with me or knows me, I'm a real good team player. The objective is to execute and make things better. And I think I learned a long time ago by great leaders that I've worked for that showed me it's not about me. It's not about it's about us. And I've been very blessed to work at properties or commercial real estate assets that, it's small crews, it's large crews. I've always been a guy that would, look at something and say, how do we make it better? And, I know that in order to do that, the people that do it, it takes all of us. And so I think I've instilled in myself, in the team that we have is, I'm not sitting in this chair because I'm better than you. I'm sitting in this chair because I got here because you guys helped me get here. And I think I've always conveyed that to the teams that we work with. And I say, if you can understand that I'm going to get right next to you and we're going to roll our sleeves up together and we're going to solve for this. I don't sit here and I tell you I know what to do, and I don't point my finger. And I think people misunderstand what a role of a chief engineer is, or a senior chief, or a director of engineering. And people get so wrapped up in the titles that they forget the concept of what you're supposed to be doing. And I think that's what has probably allowed me to be as successful is that I'll get right in there with them. We'll figure out, resolve the problem, and we'll make it better. And we did it time and time again. And so I realize you can only replace so many cooling towers. You can only re-roof so many buildings. You can only redo so many central plants. And you need to figure out, you can keep doing that, keep having fun, but Now how do you take what you're doing well and improve upon it? And so I've learned over probably the latter part of my career is I need to refine those tools and make those better. And by doing so, it's about the people. And in the last 5, 7 years, I've not really networked, but my name has gotten out there, and only because I've made it a choice to go out and join some committees. And I joined one, BOMA All-Star Engineering Olympics, and getting into it initially was, I thought it was just a typical go to an event, meet a vendor, next thing you know, it's networking, but that's not what I got into it for. I got into it because that committee alone was making the engineering industry better. And since I joined it, it's a 3-year term. From the year 1 to the year 3, I realized more so, and I watched, and I'll give you an example where these little tasks or these little training modules, which you guys are very, very helpful in. I think the committee has grown immensely with your support and a bunch of other vendor support. But when you challenge these building engineers with these tests or these little module simulations, I had no idea the magnitude of how powerful it was for these guys to sit in front of a controller or a fire panel or a water treatment or a set of drawings, and you think everybody knows what you know. And honestly, as a judge in that committee, the first year I walked away and I was amazed that our industry is not as knowledgeable as I would have hoped. And the experts, such as vendors like yourself, are key to making sure that we learn and grow from that. So year 2, what was ironic is I made it a point in year 1 when we were in the off season to make sure that year 2 would get better. And we basically figured out how to make the games better and how to make these guys more interactive. And I honestly, I watched the building engineers that worked with me. They were intimidated the first year. They couldn't answer something, and I was like, wait a minute, this is not what should be happening. We should. And there was some engineers that said, I can't believe I didn't win. I'm going to work harder next year. And I'm like, and when I saw that, I knew, boom, we got something. And what's changed over the last 3 years is every year it's gotten better. The tasks, the games, the training modules, the people interacting, the people getting involved. And to me, that's what it's about. It's about not having your name on something, but it was about making sure that those industry individuals were learning, were growing, and they were becoming something more than they ever had. And I think when they saw this, they're like, wow. So I say that to me was a moment where I realized I needed to do more. And so by being on the committee with the other peers and vendors, I was amazed that vendors were providing. It's like, I'm in. What do we need to do? Provide. And I was like, whoa, I had no idea the partnership that existed. And so I think to that end was one of my moments that I'm very proud of. And again, it's just the work ethic. I think people know that, if you're leaders lead and followers follow. And I make it a point to tell them I'm not here because I've got nothing better to do. I'm here. We're going to work. And I think one of my bosses years ago, or supervisors, told me something that, in one of my reviews that will stick with me forever. And he said that, what you do and how you manage, he goes, it's hard to put into words, but just naturally, you make people better just by naturally being around them. And that said a lot to me. I sit back and I'm like, well, what do I do differently? I don't do anything. And I realize, you know what? I don't talk down to people. I lift them up and we encourage. And there are times when I'm really direct with them. Mm-hmm. And they know, if you can ever have a supervisor that kind of counsels you in a negative way, but you walk away thinking, did I just get chewed out? I didn't even see that. I've had a boss that I worked for that did that, and I learned that it's how you communicate and how you send those messages and what you say, and always remove the one letter in the alphabet that isn't important, which is I. And so that to me has been successful, and it's just, I just realized that I enjoy what I do. I enjoy working with those individuals, and I enjoy making them better.
Yeah, absolutely. So along those lines, you mentioned earlier, people may not know what a chief engineer does, or maybe have a little bit different idea of what a chief engineer is. What in your mind, what is a senior chief engineer or chief engineer's main job?
There's a lot of things that make up what I would call a good leader. Being humble is one. Being an expert or at least a very knowledgeable technical resource, but also recognizing that you don't need to know it all. You just need to know where to get the information. But also, I could go on, and I think it's being true to yourself. It's being true to having a desire and a passion to do well, but also realize that you cannot do it yourself. And if those working with you are unable to do so, I've found where, in this role or this industry, if you are labeled as somebody that's, just average, I've watched so many guys that are just average kind of come and go. They've never really been given the support or the nurturing to lift them up. And I honestly, I think people don't take the time to really provide the support and the training that they need. And it's so often I see where somebody is labeled as, oh, that person's just average. And next thing you know, they're on with another company. And what you've just lost is the time, the knowledge, the experience, what you have invested is gone. And if I were to ask you, Tim, you've been doing this in this industry for many years. How many chiefs across this industry are with different companies, and how many? I mean, you can name after name, right? And it's because those individuals, unfortunately, have either chosen to move on because they're either, tired, overworked, stressed, or the companies just write them off. And I've seen it happen time and time again. And so often I've really, when I see individuals that I feel like are, I wouldn't say they're best friends, but people that I care about, I often see if there's distress and I say, hey, what's going on? I mean, I see an email or I see you talking to this other person. Are you looking? And, I've been very blessed to be able to sometimes course correct people and say, think hard. Don't walk away from this moment. You've worked too hard to earn where you are. Talk to people. Let's, go to your supervisor. So I've also been blessed enough to be able to recognize it and say, hey, don't walk away. It's too easy. The right thing is to walk away when and I tell people this too, and it's funny, they laugh at me. It's like, when is the right time to change a career or change a job? And they're like, oh, when you're stressed out. And I said, no, that's the completely wrong reason. Mm-hmm. The right reason is when you're the happiest you've ever been. And I said, if you can tell yourself that, then you made the right choice. And so a lot of people have said, whoa, that's pretty heavy. But, it's just being there. So I know I threw a lot at you, but to me, I'm passionate about what I do. And I just truly think that, this industry, it's a good place to be, regardless of all the world things going around us and the pandemic. But these buildings, and as much as I shouldn't say this to you in the business you're in, I don't think they're ever going to automate this industry to the point to where they don't need human intervention. And if they do, then by that time I'll be retired. But the technology is coming so fast, so quickly. It's getting better and better. But it's almost not 100%, without human intervention. You need us.
Absolutely, and I think it's interesting, asking about what is the job of the chief engineer or the senior chief, and most of what you talked about was the people. And not the actual building itself, right? I mean,
right.
Obviously having that technical knowledge, like you said, is a good resource, but also being able to know where to go find it. But, being able to manage those people and more so coach them, like you said, and the training has become, I would say, important just across the board. I mean, you've kind of seen that shift of the idea of management being more of a coach than that manager, and being able to build people up. So we're definitely proud to be a sponsor of the BOMA Olympics, and that's a great event, and to do training in general for the industry. So we definitely are happy to take part in that. So
yeah, well, I will say this, and in the last 10 years, and I'll use this kind of an analogy. 15 years ago, I remember reaching out to vendors for bid proposals, and I would get, I never got your email, or I don't use email. I'm like, whoa, and you having an iPhone or an Android phone. And I remember literally talking to vendors, and I'm like, hey, come here, let me show you how to do this. And I was showing electricians and I was showing mechanical vendors. And, over the last 5, 7 years, maybe longer, you guys, and there's a couple other outfits out there in Houston that have it. Rossler's another one. Cougar USA are the two that come to mind, that are really what I would call paying it forward. To have a business like this, and I've honestly been very blessed to work with you guys over the years. But when I see you guys are providing a level of training, and I see it, I'm just like, I am amazed at what you're offering. And you're basically, hey, you're doing it for free, but it's the partnership. You're giving back to the community, the industry in itself, and there's just not a lot of people out here, honestly, that are doing that. So it's recognizable, and I unfortunately I wish there was more of the peers that were taking you guys. I don't know how many people enroll in y'all's classes, but I am amazed at just what you've done as well. And I've watched it. I've been on watching some of the classes you provide, and we've talked about, taking it to the next level with Boxer and how we're going to do that. But I'm just amazed at one, what we're doing today versus what we weren't doing 7, 8, 10 years ago. And how the evolution is taking its course. But, this is hopefully other industry guys are going to do the same thing. But, I just think we're doing something phenomenal. You guys are doing all the heavy lifting, and, we are reaping the benefit from that. And it's just going to make us all stronger all the way around.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's been a lot of fun actually to do the training, and especially over the last 6 months, been a challenge kind of switching over to the virtual. But it's great to kind of have that partnership, like you said, and we use that word a lot too. That we like having partners like y'all to work with, and ultimately that's kind of why we're here, right? I mean, our mission is to make buildings work so the people inside can do theirs, and we can't do that without partners like y'all. So that's that's kind of where the training and all of that really comes from. The more that we can pass on some of the knowledge of all this equipment that we're providing, the better off all the guys in the buildings are going to be. So, yeah.
Agreed.
Appreciate that. So kind of along those lines, what advice would you have for people that were either just getting into our industry or maybe people that are in our industry looking to kind of advance their career?
Well, I would say that just getting into the industry, all of these resources are at your fingertips. Just tap into them. And I think, I watch these young individuals come into the industry, and they're just, it's like a baby learning how to walk. And I see the glaze in their eyes, and they look at all this equipment, and they have no idea how it functions and what makes it work. And I absolutely love taking the young building folks, and I take them to a vacant floor, and I just said, tell me what you see. And they're like, oh, I see glass. They don't talk about the ductwork. They don't talk about the electrical and the bus ducts. And so I am amazed, and I literally watch their progress, and I say, look, I want you to come back to me in a week with everything you see on this floor, and I want you to tell me why that ductwork, what it does, and why it turns here, and look at this box. And so they come back a week later, and they're like, and I say, look, I don't expect you to go read a book, but talk to your peers, see what they know. And so it's that challenging, but that to me is the entry level, is get it as often as you can, ask a ton of questions, learn, because if you're like a baby learning to walk, if you can master walking, you will be where I'm sitting before long. But you have to work hard, you have to want it. And so that's the entry level. The ones that have been doing it for a while, I say the same thing. Are they getting the resources that they need? I can tell you, over doing this as long as I've been doing it, I recognize earlier in my career, I remember as an operator, you sit in front of a computer and all you do is operate. You don't leave the desk. You don't, other than if there's a problem. Now, our industry, the building industry has shifted. Doesn't matter if you're working for Hines, JLL, CBRE, Parkway, anybody. I've noticed that, they don't want you to sit behind the computer. And the reason is the technology that is offered today wasn't there 20 years ago. And, that's why these owners, these asset managers are allowing this this very technical infrastructure to be installed in these buildings because it saves money, saves time, saves energy, and it's efficiencies. And I watch the guys that have been doing it for a while. Either they're going to fall into a very complacent role and they're just doing their job, and I wouldn't call it earning a paycheck, but they're just doing their job. Or there's individuals that really do want to, grow and keep learning, continued learning. And that is what I would say across the board. Our industry as a whole has just shifted from sitting behind a computer. Now you're having to do the job of multiple people and less, you've got less resources in some cases, and you've got to kind of manage this 8-hour day as best you can. And so I think it's, if you can just figure out what you can do and how you can do it better, how you can lean on vendors to help make this better, or identify in your buildings, why does it take so long to do this? The software, the resources are there. They're just not tapping into it. So I would say, guys, you've been here 10 years, 7 years, 15 years, whatever. Reinvent yourself. Don't ever wake up and accept where you are. Wake up and say, I want to learn something. I always make it a point when I go to work. I want to walk away learning 2 or 3 things a day. Sometimes it's more, but you can get saturated, but that's only because you're telling yourself you want to learn more, but you're really not doing it. Learn more. You're going to get stronger, and you're going to provide that as a resource to those other individuals. And as a whole, we all get stronger. So it's a long roundabout answer as far as I'm conveying to you, but I think, we can do so much more than we've done. We can go a lot further than we've ever gone, but it takes hard work, and it takes just thinking outside the box. But you don't have to think too far when you've got experts like you all, and you put your heads together, and everybody can do it together. And all of a sudden, this building is better than it was before. And so it doesn't happen overnight, but I've been in this industry and I've been at assets, whether it's been 15 years at a previous asset and 5 years my last assignment. When you walk away, you want that property to be run better, to be more efficient than when you got there. And that's a huge accomplishment to do that. So anyway.
No, I think it's great advice. And, just sitting here talking with you, I think you've taken your own advice really over the years and improved yourself and improved
Definitely.
the industry, and I think the BOMA award is well deserved and reflects that. So,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Well, again, I look at it every day. It's on my nightstand, and I'm still in awe of it regardless. But I have been so blessed to have worked with so many good people, and nothing else I can say. It's just been an honor and a blessing, and I'm going to continue to help people and be part of something that's just, the industry's got a lot to get done and a lot of people to get it done, and so I want people to probably remember me for my achievements, meaning a good coworker, a good support mechanism, and and I think I'm doing that. But it's all of us together are going to make this a better place, and I'm positive it's just going to continue to get better.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
Awesome. Was there anything else that we didn't cover? Any other topics that you want to discuss? Any other things on your mind?
Honestly, I know we talked about a lot, and nothing really topic-wise. I would just say to those out there that if you, regardless of where you are in life or your career or the industry in general, never miss a moment to enjoy life and enjoy what you do. And if you really can look at it and say you're not happy or you don't enjoy what you're doing, it's upon you to make that change and that transition. And don't, if you're going to continue to do the job you hate or work with the people you hate, around you it becomes the negative environment. And again, I'm not a guy that's philosophical in any way, but I will say that your mental aptitude, your positive aptitude is really huge for the industry. And I can tell you from time and time again, I work with guys that get stressed out, and I myself have been one, which, in the roles you're in, that happens from time to time. But, if you can always say that you're gonna solve today's problems, may not be the world problems, but whatever's in front of you, whether it's personal or professional, financial, it doesn't matter. Simplify life if you have to, but give it, this world, you're only going to be here one time. Give it all you got. and work hard and enjoy life. And you don't have to. I think the analogy is you don't have to work to live or live to work. You just got to learn how that balance works from life work balance. And I've had some good mentors over the years that have helped me do that. But you just got to be happy in life. And if you're not, get happy.
Simple as that.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it.
Well, I really enjoyed the conversation today, Mike, and thank you for coming on the show and opening up and sharing with us, your thoughts about servant leadership and the things the way that you've kind of learned in the industry and your advice for others. I think that's going to be valuable for a lot of people. So I appreciate that.
Well, thanks for having me. I really do appreciate it. And, you guys are doing some great stuff, and I know it's just going to continue to get better. And thank you for what you do and what your team does and what the company does. And it's an honor for me to be here. And again, thank you.
Oh, I appreciate that. We're happy to do it. So, and for everybody else watching today, appreciate you joining us on this episode. Look for us on the next episode of Building Value.